Hey everybody, here we are again. It's me, David Elliott. Oh, I know I'm wearing a hat today. I don't know why. If you want to wear a hat, why don't you pause this and get a hat and then we'll be hat buddies. I just felt like it today. I like this one because it's got those little mirrors on it. It's got that gold embroidery. I forget where I got this hat. Anyway, we are here today to read Chapter 5 of Evangeline Mudd and the Golden-Haired Apes of the Icky Nasty Jungle, written by the hat-wearing David Elliott and illustrated by the, I don't know if she's wearing a hat or not, Andrea Reed. Hey, but anyway, I think she did a great job and I love her art. Anyway, before we read chapter 5, some of you might have noticed, I told you before I'm sitting in my office, and some of you might have noticed something up on my shelf behind me where all my books are, and you might have noticed this little bear here. Let's bring him closer. There, can you see him? This art is actually a postcard. See? And it's from Holly Mead. Holly Mead made that, is responsible for the art on for the bear there. Sorry, don't know what I'm saying. And Holly and I love her art. And Holly and I did 3 books together. I think maybe I told you earlier that illustrators and authors hardly ever know each other. And I didn't know Holly when we started out, but we did do 3 books together. On the Farm. Look at that rooster. When I first saw that, I shouted. I loved it so much. And then In the Wild. There's the jaguar. And In the Sea. These are picture books of poems. And we were going to do many more books together, but then Holly got sick and she really wasn't able to work anymore. So that was a heartbreak. But I did get to meet Holly, and she was a wonderful, wonderful woman. So, I like to have this postcard sitting up on my bookcase right there where I can see it. Actually, I'll tell you, I'm sitting at my desk backwards. Usually I'm facing that bookcase, but the light is better if I sit here. What I wanted to say is that, a writer's life is kind of lonely. And all the writers I know, we spend a lot of time alone because we can't do our work if we're out talking and playing. So there are many days, when my friends might call and say, hey, David, let's go to a movie or let's go for a walk. And I have to say, I really want to, but I can't because I'm working on a book right now. And so sometimes it can get lonely. So I like to have things in my office that make me think of other people or things that I love. And so every day when I sit down to work, I always can look up if I'm thinking about something and see that bear by Holly Mead. And that helps me remember her and the many conversations we had. Okay, well, that's that. Let's see what we need to do. Oh, I think we better read chapter 5. Chapter 5. Is she housebroken? That question, the one of where Evangeline would stay for the 2 weeks her parents were in Icky Nasty, was a stumper. Neither Meriwether nor Magdalena had any brothers or sisters, and sadly, there were no grandparents left in the family. There was, of course, Magdalena's great-aunt Tizzie. But Tizzie was 103 years old and was convinced that she was the Empress of China. Try as they might, Meriwether and Magdalena could not think of a suitable place for Evangeline to stay, and for a while it seemed as if their trip to Icky Nasty would have to be cancelled. Then, one day, Meriwether was struck by an inspiration. I know, he said to his wife. I'll write to my second cousin, twice removed, Melvin. I forgot all about him. I haven't seen him in years, but perhaps Evangeline could stay with him. In less than a week, Merriweather received a reply from his second cousin, twice removed. Here is what the letter said. Dear Cousin Merriweather, well, I'll be a monkey's uncle. Ha, ha, get it? Why anybody in his right mind would want to yuck it up with a bunch of smelly monkeys is more than I can understand. But what the hey? You only live once, right? My wife, India Terpsichore Mudd, and I would be delighted to have Angelica, or whatever her name is, come and stay with us. We've always been too busy to have a rug rat of our own, but we'd like to know what it would be like to have one around the house. Sincerely, Melvin. P.S. Is she housebroken? Ha, ha. Evangeline did not consider it an especially good sign that Melvin had written Angelica instead of Evangeline. But anybody can make a mistake, and Merriweather Mudd said that his cousin Melvin was a very busy man as chief executive officer of some kind of business. His wife, if Merriweather remembered correctly, had been a famous ballerina and had traveled the world jumping like a jackrabbit and twirling like a top. Evangeline was not crazy about the idea of going to stay with Melvin Mudd while her parents were having an adventure in the icky nasty jungle, but she did not mope or whine or pout, as you or I might have. You see, Evangeline had spunk. She was absolutely brimming with the stuff. How did she get it? Perhaps it was because she was born in a garden, and her first breath was loaded with the molecules of all living things, instead of with the molecules of doctors and nurses and orderlies and antiseptics and weird gases. Perhaps it was a gift from the butterfly. Perhaps it was just her nature, who knows? The point is, she had it. And knowing all about the life of the Goldenhairs had only strengthened Evangeline's natural mettle. By the way, if you don't have spunk yet, don't worry. There's still time to get it. A Goldenhair is ready for anything, her father often said. They have to be. The jungle is always changing. The Goldenhairs who survive are the ones who are able to roll with the punches. Well, having to stay with her father's second cousin, twice removed, and his wife was certainly a punch. But because Evangeline was who she was, she faced it bravely. I guess I'll have to roll with it, she told herself, and who knows, maybe I'll have a little adventure of my own. In preparation for her stay with her father's second cousin, twice removed, Evangeline wrote Melvin and his wife a little note. Dear Cousin Melvin, thank you very much for letting me come to stay with you. I promise that I will not be any trouble. Please send my regards to your wife, Inda Terpsichore. Also, my name is Evangeline, not Angelica. Thank you very much. Sincerely, Evangeline Mudd. P.S. I like to brachiate. Do you? Evangeline wasn't so sure about the send my regards part. It sounded too much like a grown-up, but she wanted to include her cousin's wife, and that was how Magdalena had told her to do it. Also, she had a great deal of trouble spelling Terpsichore, even though she was copying it from Melvin's letter. In the end, though, she was satisfied with her note and mailed it herself. Time is a funny thing. It's like a soldier that never stops marching. Even though you do everything you can to get him to sit down and take a rest, he won't, which is just one way of saying that all too soon the day arrived when Evangeline and her parents had to part. Now, the first time a Goldenhair leaves its parents for a little foray into the jungle, there is no falderall. One day, while its mother isn't looking, It just slips away, and that's that. It might come back in 1 week. It might come back in 3 weeks. It might never come back at all. No one gives it a second thought. But in this regard, the Mudds couldn't have been more human. When the moment came for Evangeline to board the airplane to her father's second cousin, twice removed, all by herself with the help of a very kind-hearted flight attendant, which her parents had paid extra for, there were 3 very sad and teary Mudds hugging and rubbing noses in the airport. Evangeline couldn't disguise the 2 tears that had escaped and were rolling down her cheeks. Her parents were crying too. Crying, by the way, has nothing to do with spunkiness. And don't let anybody ever tell you that it does. Some of the spunkiest people I know cry like a baby at the drop of a hat. "We love you," her parents called out to her as she took the flight attendant's hand and walked down the runway toward the door of the plane. "We love you more than anything." "I know," she answered. "I love you too." She looked back over her shoulder one final time. "Be careful," she said. "Watch out for the little wormy things and the mosquitoes and the spiders." "Don't worry about us," she heard them reply. "We'll be just fine." It's only 2 weeks, she told herself as she settled into her seat in the plane. Not very much can happen in 2 weeks. You mustn't blame Evangeline for thinking such a foolish thing. After all, it is probably quite true that in the life of a golden-haired ape, not very much does happen in 2 weeks. But in human life, well, almost anything can happen, and usually does. Okay, that is the end of chapter 5. Evangeline's on her way to her father's second cousin, twice removed, Melvin Mudd. Let's see, what's the title of chapter 6? Oh, wait, I better show you the one piece of art from this chapter. There's Evangeline at the airport looking back at her parents. Who have you ever had to say goodbye to? Maybe a friend moved. Maybe your parents were on vacation and you were going to say with your father's second cousin, twice removed. Goodbyes are kind of strange. You never quite know what to say. Well, anyway, let's look at tomorrow's chapter. Oh, chapter 6. Mudds, mink, stink. No, I'm sorry. It's Mudds, minks, stink. Well, we don't have any idea what that means, but we'll find out later. In the meantime, do you remember his wife's name? Melvin Mudd was her father's second cousin, twice removed. And his wife's name was India Terpsichore Mudd. I'm going to say that. Terpsichore. So why don't you do this? Why don't you take a piece of paper and try to spell Terpsichore? And I'll show you tomorrow. It's an actual name, by the way. And I will show you how to spell that name tomorrow. And tell you a little bit about the real Terpsichore. Okay, guys. It's a beautiful day in New Hampshire today. I hope it's beautiful where you are. If you are, get out, take a little breath of fresh air, run around, have some fun. And remember to be good to your parents, be good to your friends, be good to your pets, and, be good to everybody. Why not? Okay, see ya.